We'll call the Hamilton County Election Board meeting to order, August 13th meeting starting at 1 o'clock. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the January 23rd, 2025 meeting.
Move to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carried. Second item on the agenda, or third item, is review late campaign finance reports from the January meeting.
Okay, all I did was put on here all of the ones that we dealt with in January to show you where they are. They are now filed on time, or filed, and everybody is in good graces with us.
Very good. Anyone have a motion on?
Move to take no further action on the late campaign finance reports listed.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Next item is a public meeting to discuss a proposal for the county to move to vote centers in place of the current precinct-only structure. After this public meeting, there'll be a 30-day period for public comments back to the election board in writing.
You want me to start?
Yeah, why don't you start? And
Okay.
welcome everybody, by the way.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, we do appreciate everybody being here, and I hope you all got a handout, a draft of the vote center plan, which is, if you don't, they were on that table over there. And I hope everyone has signed in. It is an election board meeting, and so everybody in attendance has to sign in. And then if you would like to speak, there is a list up here at the front for you to sign in that we'll go off of. And then at the end, we'll answer questions if you still have the additional questions. I'm going to kind of go over what our plan is, what vote centers are, and you can't hear me? Okay, I will get closer. Connie, can I move that towards me? Can I move it to here?
This one doesn't.
Okay.
Help me.
I think it's because I'm so short, I'm not close enough to. Okay, so what are vote centers? Vote centers are, would allow Hamilton County residents to vote at any location on election day. Unlike currently, we register or vote at our assigned polling place. This will extend the early voting concept to election day, increasing voter options and convenience. It would allow voters to vote on their own time, during lunch, closer to work. They don't have time, if they don't have time to get back to their home polling place, they can stop anywhere in the county where the voting locations are. It will be larger locations, will also allow us to deploy a minimum of 10 voting machines to speed up the lines at each location. Vote centers will have all ballot styles, which will eliminate the need to go, if you go to the wrong place, which currently happens a lot, and it always happens between 5:30 and 6, when people would not have time to get to their proper location. So that will save those people from not getting to vote because they weren't at the right polling place. We would implement the encoders that we use through our microvote system. It's an automatic ballot assignment that we currently use in early voting. So if you've ever voted early, you know you get a card that has your ballot on it that gets put in the machine. So that's the exact same process that will happen at an early voting center. With the reduction of sites, our machine technicians would have less locations to respond to if there's issues that come up, and it will increase the reaction time and assistance. It will make delivery and pickup of the voting machines much easier with fewer locations. Since the machines will have the county ballot on them, we can have machines programmed ahead of time and ready to send out at any location. So if we had an area where we were having a higher turnout, the inspector could call and we could send out a voting machine in much quicker time. Currently now, we'd have to figure out which precinct it was and address that, assign that precinct and program it for that precinct and then run it out. So it takes a big step out of the process to get those out quicker. Since the machines will have all the county ballots, that will reduce that time, I think, a lot. Vote centers will reduce the number of election day poll workers. In the past, elections have ranged from poll workers we needed around 500 to 700, depending on which election. With our proposed 52 vote centers, the need would be closer to 400 to 500 workers. The reduction in the need of poll workers will allow the election staff to focus on recruiting and training. A smaller number of poll workers will make it easier to do more one-on-one and help, I think, a lot with our training. Vote centers can replace small election day locations where we have restrictions of district lines such as state house, council, school board, and even township lines. If you have a low turnout at one of those locations, the operational cost is much more for that small of a precinct. We could find a reduce of cost in our rent, our poll workers, our hours of machine delivery. The Indiana Code requires us to have one vote center for each 10,000 active registered voters. Hamilton County has approximately 262,000 registered voters, which would mean by law we would need 26 locations. We have suggested 52 vote centers, which is nearly double, nearly double. And so we feel like that gives us an extra cushion for any concerns of the not being enough machines out in the county. When looking for locations, we first have to find someone who will support hosting us, which gets harder and harder. And over the time, people say, why do you change your precinct so often? Well, it's not necessarily us changing it, it's the location who no longer wants us to be in their facility. So they also, not only are they hosting us on election day, they host us on Monday night before when the voting machines are set up, and then a few days before when the voting machines are delivered. We look for accessible locations, large parking lots, a good-sized voting area, restrooms, a good location, access to major roads. Those are some of the things that were looked at when they were looking for the new polling sites. The Secretary of State has sponsored legislation for the last couple sessions to force counties to go to vote centers. So far, that language hasn't passed. However, the 2025 General Assembly did pass legislation requiring a study on vote centers. So there will be 3 sessions this summer, or actually, yeah, I guess it's still summer. August 22nd in Muncie, September 3rd in Indianapolis, and September 19th in Jeffersonville. Most likely, it won't be long, and the remaining 22 counties will be forced to move to vote centers in the future. Now, don't misunderstand. I have always supported vote centers. When I was in the General Assembly, I sponsored and I authored bills to create vote centers. But over my years here, I've tried to had to judge what I felt like was a good time for us. I served on the Secretary of State's committee that went to all across the state gathering information about vote centers. So I do think vote centers are great, but I've always supported the fact that it needs to be the right fit at the right time for the county. I now feel with the continuous growth in population, we are at a point where it's too hard to continue to add individual precincts based on polling site alone. This year, we are adding more new precincts, I believe 15, will mean more polling sites, more workers, more equipment, and more supplies. Vote centers will allow us to manage those locations, have more machines at vote centers where they are needed, and be able to be more efficient with the distribution of our equipment and personnel. In my opinion, it is the right time and the right fit for Hamilton County to go to vote centers. It will take the support of the election board, the commissioners, and the council. All have to, the election board has to be unanimous. The commissioners and the council have to have a majority vote on a resolution for this to pass. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, concerns, suggestions, and hopefully your support over the next 30 days. I want everyone to know that we're here to listen. We appreciate you taking the time to be here and hope that you will send us either an email or drop us a line in regards to your thoughts. And we will be taking minutes of what you all say today. Those notes will all be a part of our plan when we get ready to submit that to this. If it goes through the process, it would be a part of the plan that would be submitted to the Indiana Election Division. I'd be happy to schedule, if today you still have questions, if you want to come and schedule a time to meet, I'd be happy to do that. After today, I started putting a frequently asked question list together, and then after today we'll have probably, I'm sure, more questions to add, and those will be posted on our website. And if there's anybody that didn't get to be here today, the meeting is being live streamed, and we'll be able to go, there's a YouTube address that you can go to, and I have copies of that over on the table if you need that. So with that, that's my little presentation, and ready to answer questions or hear from others.
Do you have a comment?
Comment and a couple of questions.
Okay.
First of all, my name is Greg Purvis. I am the Democratic appointee to this board. I have been involved in elections for over a half a century. One of the biggest election day problems in every election that I have personally witnessed is people showing up at the wrong place to vote. Some of those people, every election, end up not voting at all. This proposal would address that. And for the most part, except for people that do stuff like move out of the county before the election day, would take care of that problem. I think that's important. But as people have said many times, the devil is in the details. And I do have some questions. Not concerns so much, but kind of technical election administrator nerd questions. And the first is to Kathy or Beth. It's my impression that some of our machines have more internal memory or capacity, and those are used for early voting now because they have the capability of having all of the ballot configurations on them. But some of the older ones may not. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's the cards, not the machines.
Okay.
They've all been upgraded, yeah.
So all of the machines can do it, you just might have to buy some higher capacity memory cards.
Correct.
Right. And whether I don't know if you know it or not, but the council and commissioners have approved us to get new panels. So we will have all new panels come next election.
I did not know that. That's good. Is there any need for additional machines? Because we would need more if this doesn't go through for some reason. We would need more for the additional precincts.
Well, I mean, our thought is no, that we will not need. I mean, we're proposing 52 locations. Now that could go up or down a little bit according to approval and all of that.
And with 10 machines per precinct?
Yeah, and that will
So that's
vary.
520 machines minimum.
Yes. And then you got to think, we send out 88 to our early voting locations. Typically, that's what we use. So you're talking about almost 100 machines
Leaves 83.
that will be left
Yeah. So it would leave 83.
to use.
It would leave 83 machines, and it would leave 36 poll pads.
Okay. That leads me to an additional question. if we had those extra machines on election day, and I know you have to reserve some in case of a machine breakdown or something like that. If we have a particular vote center that has exceptionally long lines, is there any plan for sending out additional machines? And second part of that is, how does that address the staffing of each vote center?
That was one of the things I had said in here, that the one thing is great about this is the machine techs can set these voting machines ahead of time. So they'll have them ready to go. So if you have a precinct in Carmel that has a wait, we can send the machine right away. We don't have to go down and get it and set it and then take it out. It'll be ready to go. So it'd be the time for us to get there. And hopefully, we'll have enough connections back and forth with that precinct to know that they're getting at that stage, and we'll be prepared to send them out really before that need hits. But yeah, we can't do that with the system we have now for voting at each individual precinct. But for vote centers, we could be approved ahead of time, we're ready.
Okay. One question sort of related to that. It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that the staffing of the vote centers is still based on precinct election boards, inspectors, judges, clerks. And so, what, you're gonna have like 5 teams of precinct election boards at each vote center?
No, we have in the plan, remember, go ahead.
Yeah. There will be.
There's a
one-
lot in there.
Yes,
No,
yes.
I know.
There will be one inspector at each location. And there will still be the 4 clerks and the 4 judges. Now, if that's deemed, we think this is gonna be a super busy location, we might put 6 judges. But one thing that we would like to do is train one of the clerks to only do paperwork. That frees up the inspector to be able to make sure that everything's right. You know, there's a few other minor details that we'd like to do as well, but it will be fewer poll workers, though, I do believe.
And with this plan, it gives you that flexibility. You know, we're all now, when we're getting poll workers, you know, we've been very lucky the last several years to be able to fill all of our boards. But, okay, we add 15 more precincts, there's, you know, another 60-some people that we're looking for. And as you know, the growth around this area is not stopping. So if we add that number of precincts every year, it's just getting out of hand.
And I know what you're saying, Ray. I think I know where you're headed with that, in that you're saying, okay, well, why would we need less poll workers when we have the same number of voters? But you have to remember, at some of our locations, some of our workers just sat around, you know, half the day because they didn't have voters. Well, this,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
we're gonna have
this is
a
more
lot fewer locations.
Right.
Right.
And I'm a little concerned about long lines and overwhelming a limited number of workers.
That would not be our goal.
No,
Definitely not.
wouldn't be anybody's goal, I would hope.
Yep.
But it is possible. You know, if everybody decides to go to one location and there are other locations that are not busy, that's a little bit of a problem, because we've seen some of that in early voting where people basically don't vote in big numbers in the first week and a half, and the last week, and they show up in droves and there's 3-hour lines.
That's human nature. That's,
Sadly. But if we can eliminate or reduce election day lines, I'm in favor of that, because particularly in our general presidential elections, we sometimes get huge lines.
Yep.
Okay. Early voting has mitigated some of that, but hasn't completely eliminated it. A couple of suggestions and concerns that I got from the public as well. There was something in the plan that said that the locations could be added by the election administrator after its adoption. I'm a little concerned about that, because I think state law requires that the election board approve that. So that's a change that I think I would like to see. And if you change locations very late in the process, how is the public going to be aware of that?
There's actually a statute that addresses that,
Okay.
especially for emergencies.
Well, emergencies are a whole another thing. If you get a location that had a major fire, for example, you
Right.
couldn't use it. You know, any kind of disaster, got hit by a tornado, you know, whatever.
I'll just tell you, if we have a signed contract from somebody, we're probably not gonna leave them. I mean,
Yeah,
they're hard to get, and
well, okay. And one last
unless it's an emergency. Yeah.
suggestion I got from a member of the public, is there any plan to have a email where people can submit comments and questions by email? And that should be accessible to all of us, too.
I put in here my email address as secretary, and then I will forward them to you.
Okay. All right. That's all I've got for now.
Okay. Is there a sign-up sheet?
Yes, there is.
Where might that be located? We'll start taking some public comments. My name is Raymond Adler. I serve as president of the election board. I don't think I'm as convinced as my esteemed colleagues that this is the thing to do. Lower workers is great. On one hand, it allows abuse, the fewer people involved. So I do have some concerns. But let's take some comments. Let's hear what you have to say. Roberta Larson.
Collazo. Good afternoon. As my name is Roberta Larson Collazo, I'm also a resident of Westfield, and I've been working the polls the past few municipal election, all of the general elections, etc. I've done balloting here with the absentee ballots and stuff. It's been a crazy time. And I can tell you that I think that the vote centers, especially having worked on the west side of Westfield in a precinct where there is an enormous amount of growth out in those neighborhoods on the west side, that the definite issue was showing up to the wrong polling place. Because they had recently moved. Well, that's another issue, is the BMV catch-up. If they go and change their address with BMV, BMV doesn't seem to catch up fast enough sometimes and stuff. So, you know, especially like the municipal election, how many people we had to turn away because they were at the wrong precinct. The last general election was absolutely insane. I worked early voting at the Westfield City Hall all of those days. All of those days we had lines waiting for us when we got there, and we had an hour and a half or so line after we closed because people were in line. So it's, I think some of those people are rushing in, especially on election day, because they're trying to get to their precinct. They work downtown Indianapolis. They're trying to get to Westfield, to their precinct, out in the middle of nowhere, precinct that they have. And they're rushing through traffic and stuff, where if they have other places they can go vote, that's much easier. If they have someplace that's closer into where the concentration of employment is, and they're able to get out at their lunchtime and go to the vote center and vote and get back to work, I think that is a plus. And easier to get poll workers if we have fewer. If we start adding precincts, it'll be really, really difficult to start getting people to. I mean, we have a hard enough time as it is to get poll workers. And so I think the efficiency of having a vote center and less poll workers. And I do have one comment about the machine. So we ran into an issue out at the precinct that I was at in the general election where we we lost some machines. And because we're so far out west, so it took forever, and the line just got longer and longer and longer. And so I appreciate that you're thinking ahead about having those machines available and ready to go. But a suggestion would be to maybe have a couple of extra machines at each, if you have those machines already, that they, at each site, you have in reserve a couple of machines sitting there, so that if something does happen, it doesn't slow down the process. The other thing that I have is that the county needs to get a little bit more public information out. I'm fairly new to the county, to the state, and a lot of my neighbors are new to the county and the state. And so it's the League of Women Voters. We've been out there with our Vote 411 trying to get information out to people, confusions about precincts and how they're voting and that type of thing. And so I would like to see a little bit more education coming from the county. And I think having vote centers would make that a much easier process. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I believe, is Lisa.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Dick. I am a resident of Noblesville, and I am employed at the Carmel Clay Public Library, which is an early vote center. And I am also the president of the Hamilton County chapter of the League of Women Voters. One of the primary concerns that we as the League of Women Voters have is lack of participation, low participation amongst voters, nationally, in the statewide, and of course as well here in Hamilton County. I believe that having vote centers is one thing that would allow greater engagement. I do believe, as has already been mentioned, that one thing that can disenfranchise voters is getting to the wrong polling place and then finding out too late that they are not going to be able to vote. And so I think that this is one thing that would really improve voter participation for those people who aren't necessarily multi-generational voters in their family, and would prevent some confusion. I think that one of the things that we see at Carmel Clay every year when we are a vote center is the people who come in to vote at our library on election day, thinking that because early voting was at the library, that they can also vote there on election day. We do our very best to communicate the message out to the voters that we are only their polling place on election day if they are in particular precincts that are served by that area. But I do think that having vote centers is something that would make it easier for all of us. I understand safety concerns, but I do think we already are addressing those safety concerns through the process of early voting. And if I'm not mistaken, and Kathy and Beth, I know you've probably got numbers that you can call out to us right away, we have a very high percentage of voters who vote early. And so I think that having the same process available to voters on election day of being able to vote anywhere in the county would be beneficial and would improve everyone's experience with the voting process. I also know many people who commute either within Hamilton County or to other parts of central Indiana, and I do think that providing a convenience, my husband teaches in Anderson, it's easier for him to get back to maybe Fishers or the east side of Noblesville as opposed to the west side where we live. Also, a lot of people who commute to Indianapolis, they may not be able to get back to Noblesville or Cicero or Sheridan by 6 o'clock, but they may very well be able to get to Fishers or Carmel. I also think that we need to consider the fact that we are not a guinea pig in this process. We have already got 67 counties in the state of Indiana who have gone to this system. Now, that has to include both rural communities as well as we know our very urban community down south of us in Indianapolis. And so I think that we need to consider the fact that this is not something revolutionary. Kathy, I very much appreciate the time and effort that you have put into both the consideration of when the right time for this is, as well as the details that you've given us in your plan. And I thank you for your time.
And Ray, I'll just show you this map. It's not real big, but you can see the little white dot in the middle is us, and everybody around us has gone to vote centers. And of the 60 of the ones that are left, Allen and Jay are in the same process. Allen County is doing their hearing Friday. And Jay is, she just reached out to me and asked me some questions, so they're getting ready to do it too, so it's going to be even more. So.
Is it Jamie next?
Oh, it's probably Jane.
Jane?
Jane?
I need cataract surgery, so if I mispronounce anybody's, I'm scheduled October the 10th, so.
Unless there is a Jamie that wants to.
I see the clipboard, but I can't see much else.
All right. Yeah, I'm Jane Funke, and I've been a poll worker every election since the 2016 presidential election, which was baptism by fire for me because I was the inspector and I had never done the job, and oh, wow. Every election I wear this American flag pin, which belonged to my mother-in-law, and it's just part of what I do. I guess having worked just since 2016, though, makes me kind of a rookie compared to several people in this room. But I do want to say, I do think this is a great idea, and as somebody who has, and I should also have mentioned, I live in Southwest Carmel and have most recently worked as a poll worker at the College Park Church, which I see is one of the proposed vote center locations, which would be great. Just a couple of comments in addition to what's already been said. I think, in Kathy's point about this being perhaps the right time, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. This could not be done if we still had the old paper poll books, obviously. Going to the poll pads makes this possible and has been such a huge improvement for the voter experience in the elections, not to mention the clerks themselves. And we also, the other thing that's changed, and I don't know the numbers, is the dramatic increase in not just early voting, but also mail-in and absentee voting, and I'd just be interested in what the numbers are. But that, I think, all contributes to what makes sense to just kind of consolidate locations and make them more accessible to voters from across the county. In fact, I wonder if having voter centers available might even reduce the number of early voters because, okay, you can go on election day if you, say, work in Noblesville, but your polling place is in Carmel, and that would be easier. So, and the one other observation I wanted to make is, I do think it's a matter of efficiency for the operation of the polling places as well. Certainly we are busy in the major presidential election years, especially for the general election, but also the primaries. However, there have been times, I'm thinking particularly of the special election for Carmel School Board a few years ago, the levy. I brought my stack of newspapers that I was behind on, and I got through almost all of them that day because there was literally almost nothing to do. And you know, it maybe doesn't save a whole lot of money, but I think that's another good reason to do this. That said, I hope I get to be a poll worker in the reduced count. So I don't know who I need to talk to about that. But thank you for this proposal. I do think it's a really good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Mark McCullough, and I'm a resident of Noblesville here. I just want to first say that everything that's done under the guise of making things easier for people to vote isn't always the best. It tends to open itself up to all kinds of possibilities, whether they be well-intended or not. And there's a gentleman that wrote a book, and I just left it behind me. And the name of the book is Countdown to Chaos. And it was written by Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. And I don't know if anybody in here has heard his name or not. But I strongly suggest that you pick up a copy from Amazon and read this. And it goes through 2020. He did the only audit, or was responsible for the only audit that has been done in our U.S. election system, which was the audit in Arizona. And he does a podcast every day. He's on 7 days a week. And he has covered this multiple times as far as these voting centers. And I went back. I just wanted to say that I plan on writing the commission here, all of you guys, with the details of why this is such a bad idea. I'm just gonna save it for that. But I do have some questions because I wanted to find out the comments that are given to you, are those comments kept only with you, or does the rest of the public get these comments, or how does that process work?
No, it will be a part of our plan. It'll be a part of the public document.
Okay, so whatever's written from anybody will, okay.
Yeah, so in the beginning, as I get them, I'm gonna share them with these two.
Okay.
And then they will be typed and part of
Okay,
our.
because I just found out about this meeting really yesterday, and I didn't have time, and I would like to speak a little bit more. I'd like to have my ducks in a row before I say anything. So as long as I know that the people will get them, that's fine. I do have another question. You mentioned something about your registered voters for the state of Indiana. You said how many registered voters?
No, I said for Hamilton County.
Oh, I'm sorry, Hamilton County.
262,000.
And
Right.
would you say that the registered voters,
Might be doing just active though.
I did do active,
because
because that's what's required.
do you have a difference between registered and eligible?
Yes,
Okay. What's your,
but the law requires active registered voters is the number we have to use, the 10,000.
so what was the number you said for registered voters for Hamilton County? How many?
Active voters was, I believe it's
You said,
262,000.
no, you're saying that's active.
Yes, I just printed the list off.
Because I think at first you said registered when you were referring to that number.
I did, and then I corrected myself.
Okay, I just didn't hear the correction.
Yeah,
And then do we know how many eligible?
yep, I sure do.
279,792.
It's pretty close. While I'm here and while I'm on record, I don't know if any of you know that there were, I think we're in 2022, but there was some canvassing that was done in the state of Indiana by groups or a group that pulled documents and a list of registered voters. And this was done in various counties, but I know it was done in Hamilton County, and I know it was done in Marion County. And I'm one of the people who knocked on doors. I was provided a list. And, you know, we had to sign, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with this or not, but
We met with the.
okay. That group who did that sold all of us down the river. They made it, there were things that were found, and I can say, you know, I had to sign a non-disclosure, but I can tell you that I knocked on doors where we had people that voted that didn't live there. And it was more than once. And so I just kind of want that there for the record. Again, what I'm supposedly couldn't say, or, you know, there's, I'm just saying that we've got people that, you know, that are, you'd had 10 people registered at one location. And and that's here in Hamilton County. I know your hands are tied to some degree by state law and federal law as far as cleaning the voter rolls, but I think that we've got a lot of fluff in our voter rolls, not only in this county, but obviously others, but here we're focused on Hamilton County. But I want everyone to know that there's a lot of people that, you know, when someone dies even, you have to request to be, have that person removed. And is that not true here now?
Hasn't been true here for years and years.
Okay. How is it through the coroner? Is it the coroner then? How are they removed?
We get them through the Social Security Administration, we get them through the Health Department, there are lots of different ways. we
Did
get
they,
them.
oh, excuse me, do they forward that information to you then on a regular basis?
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that for me. I appreciate that. Anyway, that's really, I just wanted to you know, say a few words, and I will be writing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, I think we can issue a subpoena if you have non-disclosure. Typically, there's a clause that says, except under subpoena required by law. I'd be happy to look into issuing a subpoena to you for that information, so you could make it public to us if that would be helpful.
I may ask you that after the meeting or
All right.
something. I'll just, thank you. I appreciate that.
Joyce?
Hello, my name is Josh Lowry. I'm a Westfield resident and the chair of the Hamilton County Democrats, and I just had a couple of questions. One on page 19 of the pamphlet when it talks about municipal and special elections. So I just want to make sure I have it right. So those are not going to be vote centers during those years?
No, they would, I think, let me get to it, though. I think it could be a smaller lot than what we would have in a normal election. You have the opportunity to consolidate even more, as she was saying about how the turnout's not very good sometimes. And so you have polls open all day for very little turnout, so, yeah.
Oh, so I guess is the idea that it would still be vote centers, there would just be less during the municipal?
There'll be less.
Okay. Yeah, because my initial concern was just if we have a different set of rules every third year, that could throw voters off of where they're supposed to go, but that makes sense. On page 23, so it talks about that there would be 10 machines and 4 e-poll books at each center, but that the numbers can change up to election day by the clerk or election administrator. Is there an idea, would you guys like put a minimum on it though, of say like we can move, but we have to make sure there stays at least, 8 at each poll?
Oh, yeah, oh, certainly we could do something like that. And when we get the numbers and stuff, we'll probably see that some of them would only need, 8 machines or whatever. But we'll also see probably that some need 12. So that gives us an opportunity to switch those back and forth. And then the second opportunity is let's say the 83 or whatever that's left over are here and could go where they're needed on that day. I mean, that's the heartbreaker when on election day, there's a long line and there's nothing we can do.
Right.
But this setup would give us that flexibility to get those machines on election day where they need to be.
Right. Is there any idea of, okay, so the election day rolls around and one site's got a line around the place, but, 15 miles away, it's empty. Is there any thought of whether there would be machines moved on the day of, or would there be somebody that could go out and say, hey guys, there's no line down the road?
There also is some software which we were going to look into that it's like an app and you can go in and tell that Noblesville 1 has a 20-minute wait.
Oh,
Noblesville
okay.
2 has a 2-hour wait, which God forbid, hope not. But I'm just saying we are going to look into that. But without that software, I mean, we would not move machines election day from one site to the other. We would move the ones that we still have here to out there. And then, and keep in mind, the election board is here all day long. So it's not just one of us making that decision. It would be all of us would be saying, you know, okay, Nova's one, they really need help. Let's get that out there.
Well, but is it, I know like you guys will all work together, but the way it's written, it looks like it would just be one of the two of you would have to make the
Okay,
decision.
okay. Well, we will change that, because that's
Okay.
not the intent. Because like I said, we're all here on election day and within an arm's reach of each other, and so,
Because I think my first concern when I read all that was, let me be absolutely clear, like I have the
I want you
utmost
to.
confidence in you guys delivering a safe and secure election. So this is not anything towards you guys, right? My concern is if there's unilateral ability to move the voting machines, a future clerk or a future administrator, I don't know, gets a call from the president and is asked to move stuff around the night before, and now certain areas all of a sudden only have one machine and another's got 21. And that would be the concern. But if there's no unilateral ability, then there's always, you know, a veto power by, I guess, the
we can
board.
put some language in here that would address that. 'Cause
Okay.
that would, like I said, not be any of our intent, nor would I want it to be anybody in the future's intent. So.
Right. And you mentioned the, like, signing contracts with the voting sites. How far ahead of time are those usually signed?
As soon as we can. We usually start right after the last election, getting them. We get them for the year, but then we also, as soon as the election's over, send it out to make sure they're still going to. So we do it within 8 or 9 months of each of the next election.
Well, we've already contacted any of these locations that are on this 52 that are on this list. We contacted them starting a couple of weeks ago, not for a contract, but to say, this is a possibility. If we were to go vote centers, would you be willing? So we've had over a third of them, I think, come back as yes. We've had a one no so far that they're not going to be a poll site. So I don't think that had anything to do with vote centers. They're just not going to be a poll site, which happens a lot, you know, every election. So, but we will send out the contracts come probably the end of January is when we will start sending those out. And by law, they're not required to have them back until just a few weeks before an election, which to me is a little craziness, but we ask them to send them back to us, you know, within a shorter time than that, telling them what the law is, but requesting that they send them out, you know, that we get them back earlier than that, so, and most of them comply.
Right. Are all of the proposed ones so far, they'd be able to fit at least 10 machines? Do you know? Okay. And is there any, I would expect this would be exceedingly rare, right? But is there any process for the average, you know, Hamilton County resident to object or to challenge one of the locations, if there's a reason?
As an election board, you can anytime send a letter or a note or come to our meeting and do that. And then it would come up to be our decision to, you know, figure out, is what you're saying correct? Do we really need to move it or whatever?
Okay.
Yeah, so no, there is definitely an avenue.
Well, my thought, I think I'm trying to make sure that we don't make your guys' job any harder than normal, that we wouldn't want to wait until, you know, September before the election to do so,
If I
yeah.
might, Josh, your predecessor, Ms. Vare, made an objection last year to a precinct polling place that had 2 or 3 precincts in it, because the pastor at that location was a candidate, and he's now an elected official. No action was taken by the board despite my motion to drop that one. But I would note, I do not see that particular location on the list of proposed vote centers. So,
Was that Life Church?
so
It is on the list, is it not?
No.
Life Church on Sheridan Road.
There might be another Life Church.
There is a different Life Church in Fishers. The,
Yeah, Life Church Fishers.
individual in question that was, who's
Yeah, It is not on the list.
Who is
And-
the
and that
pastor?
was-
The one in Noblesville is not connected to the one in Fisher.
I see, okay.
And that, if I remember right, that request was pretty close to Election Day, too.
It was, and you asked if Jocelyn Rivera could come up with a proposed alternate location, and that didn't happen. And we couldn't find any others, so there was a practical element to that, too.
Yeah.
And Josh, that's another thing, you know, if you know of a location that's good, we'd love, I mean, we drive around looking for church parking lots
Right.
and that are big and all the time.
Well, I will
Just saw
tell
one the
you,
other day.
the Hamilton County Democrats were planning on opening an office later this year, so I'm just offering that, if you guys think that might be a nice bipartisan location for an election. One last thing that's actually not about this, because I have to say, I think you guys are doing a really good job right on this. There was an issue on Election Day with some of the voting machines, I guess, having to be reset at like 6 a.m. If this, you know, if it's ringing a bell on the, I know it was at least at the, on the west side of Carmel. And I just wondered, I thought I had heard that there might be a report and what I mean by report is like investigation into it. Was there anything that was determined after that, or was anything looked into about that?
I think there were notes in our minutes, but I do believe we were to get a report, from Microvote. So we will make sure we get that done.
Okay.
He was at the meeting and explained it to her, and I think, if I remember correctly, she was satisfied with the answer. But no, we will get that document and get it in the minutes and get it to you.
And if I remember correctly, part of that was that the voting machines had to be reset because they were going from early voting to, you know, Election Day thing. That would act, under the voting center, that would kind of eliminate that potential problem, right? Because it's going to be the same ballot regardless. Okay. That's also another benefit. Okay. I have no other questions. Thank you, guys.
Thank
all.
you. Appreciate it.
Steve?
Thank you very much for providing me this opportunity to come and speak with you. My name is Steve Brannick. I've been a resident of Hamilton County since 1984, and as Mrs. Williams and Mr. Schaller know, I've been an election worker since 2000. I've served as the inspector of my home poll, which is precinct 709, Village Farms 1, since 2000, in almost every election excepting those where we shared the poll with another precinct, and I worked at another precinct. And this past election, I also worked not only at my precinct as the inspector, but I worked at the Coal Creek Early Voting Center. I worked all but 2 of the days that they were open, and this was very eye-opening for me and gives me a perspective of both our normal election on Election Day versus the concept of early voting as represented by early voting. I absolutely support the concept of voting centers, pardon me. I'm stumbling a little bit. Voting centers, is that what we're calling them?
Yep.
Okay. It's wonderful, because that's what we basically did early voting at Coal Creek. We had 10 machines. We had a tremendous turnout. And by the way, Madam with the election, the ladies, wonderful. What we want is turnout. We really want the people to come and vote. And in order to get the people to come and vote, we must make it accessible and painless, and whatever other alternative adjective you want to use. So we did that at Coal Creek. We had 10 machines initially. And I don't know if you remember our rate of throughput, Mrs. Schaller, but we upped it very high. And we did it because we lined up the voters about 4 or 5 deep with a judge. And as soon as a machine was vacant, the person was walking away, we zipped somebody up and got them going. There was maybe 25 to 30 seconds delay between use on the machine. And our throughput was very high. I think we broke 1,000 several times in the 5 hours that we were open, which is much better than we did at any election I've run at a precinct poll. And yes, we had people in line, and people had to wait to get through, but still they waited because they knew they would get through and they could vote. So I saw every possibility of success with this concept as opposed to what we do on Election Day. Mrs. Williams made a good summary of some of the problems. People showing up at the wrong precinct. What do? You know, almost invariably, they didn't vote because they couldn't get to where they needed to go in time to vote. With county-wide openings, my God, there's no excuse for that, right? And Mrs. Schaller will know that we even, a year or two ago, we went to the BMV and tried to work out this problem of BMV, people registering at the BMV and it not coming through. We worked with the BMV to set up the system so we understood what the problems were and why this didn't go through. Number of poll workers. When we had individual precincts, and we still do now, but at individual precincts, there was always a challenge of having enough workers, especially Democrats, because there just aren't that many of you here.
There are now.
Well, yeah, but we still have a problem, okay?
Well, both parties do.
Yeah. So having enough poll workers is, I think, solved by this because you don't have to have as many. And the other thing, I think somebody mentioned this, the poll pad was a game changer. Getting rid of that printed poll book so you could process people so quickly at the clerk's desk made a big difference in the rate of throughput. And to me, this is a critical issue of getting people to the poll so that they know when they come, they can get in, get out, and get their vote over with. If they have to wait, that's one thing. But we made it so that the people knew they had confidence they would get through and they would be able to vote. The longest line we had as an inspector on election day was Bush Gore. We had a line when we closed the polls such that we had it open until a little bit after 7 o'clock to process everybody through. And it was raining. And we brought the people into the poll, into the clubhouse, as many as we could. We couldn't bring them all in. Still, the people waited because they wanted to vote. To me, that was a sign that people do want to vote, as long as we make it convenient and accessible. I think what you're proposing, Mrs. Williams, is a great idea. I think it's going to go a long way to improving the turnout in Hamilton County and making this an even better place to live. Thank you very much.
Can I make an additional comment, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. There have been several people that kind of touched on getting having people turn out and have an interest in the elections. And one of the things I think that is a struggle every year for everybody is to get information on candidates, and especially the races that are what we would call down ballot, or, you know, whether it be the judges, whether it be, you know, I think school board members tend to get their own, you know, publicity at this point, but some of those other races. And I don't know what you folks could do to, you know, to help, because you can't find information on candidates a lot of times. And I don't know if there's something where, if they're going to throw their hat in the ring and be on a ballot, that, you know, there's some kind of a little bio or something about them, or because it is just difficult to find information. And that's all I want to kind of say on that. But then and the last thing then is, I was just thinking to myself before, you know, whatever happened to one day election? We you know, it wasn't too long ago where we voted, and then by midnight we knew our results, and so that wasn't that long ago, folks. Thank you.
Mark, I don't know that this is what you were referring to. I don't know if you were referring to getting the results or getting people voting on one day. But I did have some people make comments that they hope that if we did this, we would do away with early voting. And I will just tell you, we physically cannot vote all of Hamilton County on one day unless we buy double the voting. I mean, the cost would be horrendous. So we have to have some form of early voting to be able to get everybody in.
Well, have you ever, and I guess I'm up here now, I'm going to ask this, but have you ever thought about going back to paper ballot?
No.
No.
Dear God in heaven.
My resignation would be along with
Okay.
that. I mean, you talk about consistency, or not you, but people talk about consistency and efficiency and all that. If you go back to paper ballots and you have all these counters, you're gonna have different people making different judgments, where
They're still run through a machine to count.
oh, I
Not
thought you meant.
necessarily.
The
I
paper
thought you
ballots,
meant
your paper ballots could be. I mean, there's different
Are you
voting
talking
systems that
about
are all over.
hand-marked and hand-counted paper ballots? Or are you talking about machine-generated
Yeah, but you know, again, it hasn't
machine-counted
been,
paper ballots?
it hasn't been that long ago. I mean, it's not been that long.
I mean, there are counties that have optical scanned paper
Right.
ballots.
Okay, I thought you were talking about
That's a
pure
completely
paper.
different system than what we
Yeah,
have.
exactly.
We'd have to
There's
spend
many
millions
different
of
types of
dollars to acquire those machines in the place of the ones that we have now.
Yeah, I hear some snickers.
And I'm not convinced that those are more reliable than the DRE machines that we use here.
Yeah, there's arguments,
Right.
you know, for everything, I think. And, you know, what I will say is, you know, the snickering on the paper ballot part, these poll pads, if you think that, I'm convinced that there are people that have access to those poll pads. I mean,
How do you mean that?
There's no way.
well, somebody knows, because if you're gonna have a poll pad, okay, and so somebody votes, let's say at one polling station, they have to know they're already marked off, you know, that they voted through the system and that they can't go somewhere else and vote again. I'm just saying that, that will come as far as in the details that is written and to what I think, I'm just saying that not every system has its flaws. That's for sure.
It has even tell you if you are, have sent in for an absentee ballot, immediately it pulls it up and says, sorry, they asked for an absentee ballot.
Right.
I mean, it immediately tells you, and that's when we're on the phone to
Right.
the election board.
Right.
So I worked as a clerk many elections, and there was just, I've never seen an issue that way, never.
Again, if you did canvassing like I did, and you saw the amount of people that were registered to certain households and those that actually were where they had a vote, and they didn't live there, you start to question things a little more. That's what I'll tell you. Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment? Yes, sir. Step forward. Please state your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Colby. I'm a resident of Fishers and a longtime worker at the election. I worked early voting, and I just want to comment a little bit on the line that we talked about. Sometimes I work at Holland Park, and the line is 2 hours long, and I'm an active inspector. I go out and work that line, and I have phone numbers that the election office gives me of other locations, and I'll call them. What's your line look like? And I'll let people know, and they'll go over there. The other thing I do is I'm mindful of those people who are handicapped, that are in a walker or have a cane. I'll ask them if they want to come inside and take a seat. I ask them to keep track of the person in front of them and behind them, so when those persons show up, it's their turn. Typically, what happens is the person in the front of the line will say, oh, go ahead and let them go. I'm pleased to see that you have a document clerk that's a big job, the VRG forms, and when someone does have an absentee out, calling the office and finding out what the status of that is. I'd also ask you to consider in your training, cross-train people. Don't just make them clerks and judges, make them both. And I typically do that in my location. I'll ask people, well, can you do both? If not, I'll train them. And that way the people who are sitting at the poll pads are sitting, and the people who are the judges, they're standing all day. And so you get a chance to, typically they work it out on their own. I keep the balance of Democrat and Republican, but they work it out and they have their own schedule. One thing that may contribute to the waiting time are the black boxes going to be on the machine. So that could be a problem if you run out of tape. because you have somebody come out and have to change that tape. And just in general, I think that the voting office does a terrific job. I felt much supported. If I call the office, I get my answers. If I call voter registration, I get answers. If I have a problem with the machine, I get a tech out there, lickety-split. Thank you.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
I just have a couple of quick questions on some of the details that.
It's being taped, so you need to come to the microphone. Tell her her name.
Thanks. I just have a couple of
Please
questions.
state your name.
Oh, my name is Deb Jonathan. I live in Carmel.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of quick questions on some of the details that you mentioned in going forward with this plan. Do you know that during the last election, how many voting machines were in use throughout all the precincts?
I couldn't tell you exactly. It was around 570 something, I believe.
500
On election day.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, on election day, 500, because I was just, looking, you say if you had 52 sites with 10 machines each, that would take it down to 520 machines. So possibly we're having less machines to process the same amount or greater number of people. My other question was, one of the things moving forward, you said it would make it easier to get machines, faulty machines, or having to swap machines out. I guess I don't understand why having a voting center would make that easier than now. Why couldn't you just take a machine now to this precinct?
Okay, I think I said it would be more efficient, because what we have to do, we have, on some elections, we can have 200 ballot styles, okay? So we have to have for specific precincts, we have a specific ballot, okay? So we would get a call from that precinct, our machine techs would go and program that machine, all right? When you do vote centers, every ballot is on that machine. And so when we could have them already ready to go, and so when we would get a call, or, well, like I said, if we had an idea that they're having problems, then we could get that machine out there much quicker.
So you currently can't do that now? You can't
Can't do
currently?
it as quick. We can do it,
You
and
could-
we do it.
Okay.
But it's not as efficient as if the machine was already set and all you had to do is pick it up and go.
Right, but that's my question. You cannot, under the current system, you cannot currently preset that machine or with all the ballots in it?
No, because when they're the individual precinct, the way we are now, if you only have one precinct on your,
Right, okay.
one ballot on your precinct.
So that's just physically impossible to do that under the
Well,
current
what
system?
the problem would be is you would have all the ballots on there, and then you would have to go through 220 precinct names to select your ballot.
But you don't have to
Or
do
you'd have
that?
to go through the encoder device.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm still a little confused, but all right. And then my final question is just, a lot of people have mentioned that it's a really big problem with people going to the wrong voting place, and I understand that. I could understand the frustration, probably temper flares. But have you got any way to quantify that? Is it 10%? Is it 5 people that came in all at the same time? I'm just trying to understand really how big of a problem it is, because when it happens, I know it's got to be really, really frustrating and upsetting on both sides.
I don't know if anybody can quantify it, but my own personal experience, and I'm a precinct committeeman. I've been a precinct committeeman, a poll worker, a candidate, election board member, you name it. This happens at every polling place, every election. Now, some of those people end up finding where they need to go and voting, doubtless. But some, we have people coming at like 5-10 minutes till 6. And Indiana is one of the earliest closing times in the nation, which is set by the General Assembly, not by us. And so those people, unless the correct polling place is very close, have no chance of voting. Could they have voted early? Sure, but that's hindsight. As a realistic matter, and other people have commented today on the same thing, all of us have seen this happen. So It is a persistent and real problem. Can we give a number to that?
Sure.
I don't see how that's possible.
Well, as a Purdue math major, I can put a number to it. What we think if there's 262,000 voters, and we're 99% accurate, that would mean that 2,620 people went to the wrong station. I guess my concern, I look at it, we have 14 people who are up for judges in one form or another on this next election. The lives of 14 potential judges. Do I want somebody voting for them that can't find out where to vote? I'm not sure I do. I want everybody to vote that wants to vote, but I don't, there comes a point you have to be a little bit cognizant of what you're doing. That's part of my concern.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Thanks.
I think missing one voter is one too many.
Well, again, I disagree
They
there.
don't know what they're voting on or what they're voting for, then it's just a.
Who are we to judge that?
Mary, there's a man.
Yes, sir. Please step forward and state your name for the record. Well, to answer your other question, Steve, somebody has to do it. I turned away a voter a couple elections ago that came here from New York to vote. Who am I to judge?
Well, that's different, Ray.
Well, at some point, we got to draw the line.
Yes, I agree.
And I drew it. If you live in New York, I'm not going to let you vote here.
But in terms of is somebody prepared by knowing that, they're a legitimate voter registered here in Hamilton County, are they intellectually prepared because they've studied all the candidates and they know? I don't know. That's up to them. If they're registered and they're legitimate, they vote.
Along that line, before this gentleman speaks,
Excuse me.
my own precinct, since the schools have decided they didn't want to be polling places anymore, have been in 4 different locations. Because
Right.
all of the
Well,
churches,
we-
because they decide they don't want to do it anymore.
We can force that, can we not?
We could force the schools to do it, but I'm not sure anybody wants to pull that trigger. And I've raised that
I'd vote
before.
for
I
that.
would be in favor of going back to the schools, but
Me
that's
too.
off the topic.
Let's do it.
Uninformed voters, yeah, that's a problem. It's always a problem
Yeah.
for everything.
Not in
Low
Washington State.
information voters, it's a real thing, but they are legal voters. You could be of low intelligence and not know anything but your own party affiliation, if that, and you're still entitled to vote, just like any of us who are more than informed people. Or you could have Albert Einstein. They have the same vote, and it counts the same. So,
But are we trying to be better than 99% accurate? If
Yeah.
there's 2,000 and some people out there, we're 99% accurate.
I'm not in favor of discouraging people from voting. I think we should encourage it to the extent practical and possible.
Yeah, sir, go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
my name is Keith Jonathan. I do have a question, but I'm addressing some of what you were just talking about. I moved here about a year and a half ago from Washington State. There, they have mail-in voting. They have boxes where, for weeks before the final election, you can just submit your ballot. You don't miss anybody. They know where the boxes are in their own neighborhoods, and it's not a problem. Why do they vote for a certain issue or a certain candidate? Because the state sends out a mailer to every voter that has all of the candidates, all of the issues, pros. It explains what those issues are. It has a pro, it has a con. Everybody has an extreme amount of information that they get in the mail from the state prior to the election. I don't understand the absurdity of the way elections are held in Indiana that doesn't provide that kind of information. And that's not on you guys, that's more on the state itself. So,
You prefer their outcome to Indiana's?
I'm sorry,
Do you prefer their outcome to Indiana's?
yes, I did,
Yeah.
yeah.
Does he prefer their outcome, crazies to Indiana's?
So, one of the things that has been talked about quite a bit today is we want to get voter turnout, and we can't quantify, as you said, how many people went to the wrong place to vote. We don't know for sure how many of those people happened to. In my neighborhood, we have a precinct voting location. I've voted either there, and I also voted in one election at one of the early voting locations. At my local precinct location, I was in there for 10 minutes. At the early voting location, and I understand this happened for days in a row, it was a 2-hour wait. How many people, and you can't quantify this either, how many people did not vote because they were not willing to wait 2 hours in line to go to the early voting? So that's a question I don't expect you to answer, but I think it's something that should be considered when you decide whether or not we should go with these voting places. The other part of that is virtually everybody in my neighborhood that is able to walk could walk to the polling place in our precinct. If you have these 52 locations, that's no longer an option. That makes it more difficult for people to get to a place to vote. In addition to that, if you can vote at any of these 52 locations, then there's a good chance that the one that's the most convenient to the most people is going to be overwhelmed at some point, and you're going to have the same situation that we had with early voting with an hour's wait to get in to vote. So that's just my observation. I hope you'll consider that.
Did you look on the map to see if your area?
I haven't seen where the 52 is yet. I know where my precinct location is, and it was a couple of miles for me to drive to Carmel Library for the early voting, which was much less convenient, not inconvenient, but much less convenient. So.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
That's just a quick question. Are the push
Yeah, please come up to the microphone, state your name for the record.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yes, I guess they need to know this question was asked, and maybe it's labeled here.
Are the push pins on the map, and I'm Jane Funky again, the push pins on the map are the proposed centers, and is there a difference between the clear pins and the green pins?
Is there?
Yeah, clear pins are what the polling locations were in the last election that we have chosen not to choose for vote centers.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Steve Shamo. I work with Microvote and represent the Knowing product. I've worked with this county's election system for over 30 years now. I don't live in Hamilton County, so I don't have a dog in the fight for a yay or nay on this, but I did want to address a couple of the things that pertain to the voting system itself and how it impacts this decision. I have had the pleasure of working with probably about 20 counties, either sitting on their vote center board or at least facilitating information to help them decide. I personally, when vote centers first came into play, 2008, that area, I was kind of diametrically opposed to them. I didn't feel that they were right for Indiana at the time, for my own personal beliefs. But as I worked with counties and saw Republicans and Democrats and other areas have the same concerns as the other party, as we went geographically to other areas, I kind of realized that the concerns were more personal, and when we got into the actual nuts and bolts of the election, the number one, first and foremost thing was the number of poll workers needed. We were starting to see a drop-off of poll workers, and the quality of poll worker increased. Best idea regarding having a clerk that's just focusing strictly on paperwork. I have found that to be one of the better advantages of vote centers, in that when people have the wrong address, it gets corrected correctly. More importantly, provisional ballot processing. We've seen with a higher level of training, with fewer number of locations, that when we get 2 weeks later and we go to start counting those provisional ballots, they were actually filled out properly and do qualify to be counted. Quite often they're missing signatures and other things. But regarding the voting system itself, the efficiency of the voting system magnifies pretty dramatically when you go to vote center. Under a current precinct scenario, you might have a precinct that has 2 or 3 machines in it, and one voting machine might only be casting 20, 30 ballots on it. The other one maybe 100, maybe 50. You should be able to expect about 240 votes per voting machine on an election day. But the problem is precinct A over here might be overflowed and have X number of machines. This one over here is not being voted, so therefore this machine very easily could have absorbed many more votes at another location as it went. To follow up on the lady's question regarding the efficiency of getting equipment out to locations quicker, that's a big one. As Kathy explained, if we get a call from a precinct, we can only program that machine for that precinct. So the clock starts, phone call comes in, technician goes down, pulls a machine, programs that machine, and then takes it out. Under this circumstance, what other counties do is they pre-program the spares. They have them in the vehicle, sealed and registered to the technicians. Quite often, they might be in the neighborhood as opposed to driving all the way across the county. And if anyone hasn't noticed, it's getting harder and harder to drive across this county. And so we have the mechanism and the manpower to basically get to these locations more quickly. So essentially the efficiency is really big. Another thing, a feature that we haven't used in this county yet in the electronic poll book, there is a wait time ticket. You have the ability to have a clerk, whether it's early voting or election day, print out a receipt and give it to the last person in line and ask that person to give it back to them when they get to the front of the line. They scan that receipt and it registers how long it took for that person to get there. So that can be monitored at headquarters now and start seeing issues. The other big one for larger counties that have gone to vote centers, say for instance like Johnson County or Hendricks County is, from the poll worker standpoint, calling in to get help is dramatically improved. I don't have hundreds of locations trying to get a hold of Beth or Kathy. Now it's down to 52. So when they do call, they get a more qualified answer to their question. And the lines and the call banks can be reduced with more quality people rather than just bringing people in off the street and say, hey, give me a call, take their name and number, and we'll get to them in order of importance. That's been a really big one on that. The question you started the meeting with regarding more machines, it wasn't until recently your voting system could even handle vote centers. The voting machine could always handle the number of ballots. It was that red tally card that lacked the capacity to contain all those results for the transfer. The votes remain with the voting machine, but we weren't able to easily and efficiently move the votes to the central system. And so about 4 years ago, we started developing a larger card with a 156 kilobyte memory that allows us now to efficiently move those over. So it wasn't even really until right now the county could go to this, although the thought process had been going on for quite some time. I believe that's all I got. But anyway, like I said, it just makes it more efficient, and it's and it gives the opportunity for the technicians to keep up with the demand that's taken on in the field at the time, and the phone banks. Thanks, and I can hang around. I know some people in the audience had some questions regarding the voting system. I'll hang around after this meeting. If you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to address those too.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a comment
Or question?
or question? Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Dick, again, League of Women Voters. My board would not forgive me if I didn't come to the podium and mention this, since it has been raised by several people about information about candidates. The League of Women Voters does a Vote 411 website, and every election, primaries and general elections, we send a candidate survey out to every candidate for every public office that's on the ballot in Hamilton County. And we ask questions, and that is available to all voters. You put your address in. If you don't want to put your address in, you can put your next door neighbor's address in, and it will show you what is on your ballot. It also, because the League, as a national organization, gathers the information about the polling places, about early voting, all of that information is also available on Vote 411. We can also direct you to voter registration information. But it is, we like to think, a one-stop shop for voter information. So there is information that is out there. I know the elections office can't necessarily promote that, but we bought yard signs a few years ago, and we put a yard sign, a Vote 411 yard sign out at every early voting place. And if we had voting centers, getting enough money together to get a Vote 411 sign for every center on election day would be very doable for us. But our goal is not to tell anyone who to vote for. We just want to tell everyone that there is information available to them to help them make their own decisions about who to vote for. Thank you for your time.
Is that vote411.com? Is that word? .org.
Anyone else? Now, we'll show the public comment session closed.
I have taken that off the Charlie's thing off the list. The next thing we need to do is set a meeting for after 30 days. Sometime.
I have some dates in September that I can't do.
Okay, no, that's fine, or after, we can do, but just.
The 15th, after 2 o'clock, I could be available.
My wife has medical procedures on the 16th, 17th, and 29th.
What about the
So I'd
15th?
like to give some window around that.
So is the 15th work?
I thought it had to be after the 15th.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, and it's a commissioner's meeting, so we couldn't be here. Okay.
So pretty much most any time between the 17th and 29th.
About the 19th.
I can do the 19th.
Friday the 19th, yeah, I can do that.
Could be the afternoon.
Yeah, that would be best.
Can we do is the 18th available? I have to, yeah, I have to check. 18th,
Yes, 18th is good for me.
18th is also good for me.
okay, 18th at 1 o'clock?
Sure.
PM. Election. And I will keep information coming to you as I get it.
Okay.
Was there any old business or new business? I didn't have any.
Any other business from anyone? If not, the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Thank you all for coming. I